You can't start out in pen testing. It's not entry level. This is the origin story of how I landed my first job in cybersecurity as a pen tester. My name is Ryan from Elevate Cyber, and I'm a pen tester with over a decade of experience in offensive security from Fortune 500 companies, US government, and independent contracting. So let's start off the story with my freshman year in college, and I didn't really know what I wanted to major in. One of my mentors when I was in high school was an electrical engineer, and I knew I liked math, I liked logic and stuff like that, so I decided to pursue that major. Well, it turned out that I got put on a special living floor for everyone that was in IT, and my roommate and a ton of people that I knew on my floor in my dorm were majoring in a cybersecurity degree. It was the first time that I heard about some of the different job opportunities in cybersecurity, including the offensive side and things like that. And I just remember thinking, wow, this is so cool. I had no idea that this was something that you could do and get paid for. It got to the point to, hearing them talk about it, I was like, man, if I ever were to change my major, this is absolutely what I would do. But we fast forward to senior year, and I was really hating my current major. I decided that ultimately I was going to change my major, and I made that shift my senior year. Luckily enough of my credits transferred over. It only took me one extra year, but that's when I ended up making the shift. But even a little bit before that, in my junior year, I started to play around with this stuff because I was really taking an interest in it. Essentially, I came up with the idea that I would reach out to some software developers, people that were in computer science major, to offer free pen test services for them, because pen testing in particular was the side that I was most interested in. Everyone told me, oh, that's really hard. It's like very few people can work in that field. You have to be really skilled. It's not an entry-level job, all of this stuff. And this was like way back in 2014. So all the things that you think are modern, people are saying about it being oversaturated or really difficult, not an entry-level job, just know that I was hearing it back then over a decade ago. And when I ended up finishing the major, what I found out is that college massively underprepared me for what I would need to do on the job. So even though I was doing those unpaid contracts, the mistake that I made is I thought, oh, that doesn't count as real experience because I wasn't getting paid for it and all of that stuff. So I decided not to put that on my resume. And because my major underprepared me in pretty much every way, I ended up having to start off in IT and work there for a year. Now, fortunately for me, I was able to land a job in IT at a Fortune 500 company through a career fair. So if you're a college student, I would highly recommend go to those career fairs, take them serious, try to land a job there, because if you can make a lateral movement within that company, if that company that you're working for, even if it's in IT or something, if they have a cybersecurity team, that can be an amazing option. Which brings me to my next point. And so specifically on the IT side, I was working as a backup and recovery administrator. So if you think about all the data that the company wants to be able to restore in case of a disaster, or, let's be more honest about it, a lot of times it was not any kind of cyber attack or something. It was like someone at the company accidentally deleted a bunch of crucial company data, and then they were freaking out, and either you were their greatest hero or their worst enemy. It was a very interesting job, I gotta say, but the problem was that very quickly I learned everything for the job, and it got very stagnant and boring, which is why I love cybersecurity, because there's always more to learn. But the point being is that when I was working that job, I was putting a lot of effort into it and doing the best job that I could, and really trying to excel in that area, even though I wanted to work in cybersecurity. And after work, I was constantly putting a ton of time into cybersecurity, specifically pen testing, because that was my main area of interest. I'm going to be completely honest with you guys. Even though I was putting in a lot of time, it wasn't like I was this superhuman being that always put time into cyber every day, never missed a day, was unwaveringly consistent. That was not the case. There were crests and troughs, right? There were times where I was putting a lot of effort into cybersecurity, a lot of time into it, and there were times where I was just playing Overwatch. And I was really into competitive Overwatch back in the day. I was like a Tracer main, and I ended up climbing the ladder pretty far in that. I ended up getting Master Tier, and that honestly taught me a lot about how to get good at something, how to get good at a skill set, which I was able to apply to other areas like cybersecurity and various other pursuits. Overall, I was consistent, and I think if there's one takeaway, that is the main thing, that sometimes you will fall off during this journey, but if you can be consistent overall, then time will do its magic. It will get you to a pretty high level if you just keep going, treating it like an infinite game, as I say all the time. And another thing about this is, on this journey, I had to survive multiple rounds of layoffs, multiple waves of that within IT at the company that I was working for, at General Motors. I was working at General Motors, the car company at the time. There were even situations where I'm not even kidding, I was standing in a circle talking with some of my coworkers. This HR person walks by, taps my coworker on the shoulder, and just walks off with them into a conference room. That was the last time I ever seen some of these people ever again. It can be pretty terrifying when these layoffs are going on, but understand this was back, at this point it was like 2016, 2017. It was really that far back. And, you know, a lot of people think these layoffs are like modern things, these layoffs in IT and like people aren't hiring. Well, guess what? That's cyclical. This happens all the time. Yeah, maybe there's some differences in the overall landscape of things now compared to then, but understand that these layoffs are cyclical in nature. I've seen it before, and if you've been working in any industry for any amount of time, I'm sure you've seen these waves of layoffs as well. And that's why I'm always really optimistic on this stuff, that the jobs will come back, because at the end of the day, there's still a huge shortage in cybersecurity. But yeah, I had to survive this on my end as well. But here's the silver lining to all this. At the time, I didn't know how I was going to get into cybersecurity, but I absolutely knew that it was something that I was going to pursue and I was going to find a way to make it happen. Well, it just so happened that an opportunity presented itself to me. And here's the thing, going back to all of those, all that time of independent studies, going all the way back to college, learning this stuff on my own, I would say that was the key that unlocked the door. But actually developing the skill set is what enabled me to be able to walk through that door once it was unlocked, right? So there's really two components of it. And a lot of people will look at my story or look at someone else's story and say, it was luck. And I can't even disagree with this. Here's the thing, yes, I will admit it was luck. Luck is what got me here. Luck is what gets most people success. But you know what? There's another side to that, and that you have to put yourself in a position to create your own luck. So maybe you've been doing everything right. You've been putting all the time into cybersecurity, been learning the skill set, but you've just been unlucky. You haven't had like this big opportunity yet. You just got to keep putting yourself out there and keep going for it, keep applying to jobs, keep putting yourself in a position to get lucky. And at some point, luck will come your way. An analogy that I like to make is and this is really how I see landing a job in cybersecurity, is if someone puts you at the 3-point line and says, hey, if you hit one shot, then you win, right? You win the prize. And here's the thing. If you shoot the basket one time, the chance that you make that shot, unless you're really good at basketball, probably pretty slim. You're probably not going to make it on your first shot. This was basically getting a job, let's say 5 years ago, or back when I got into it, right? So you hit this 3-point shot. Okay, you get one try, it's going to be pretty hard. But if you get infinite tries, what are the chances that you eventually hit the shot? Well, as long as you're strong enough, it's pretty much guaranteed, right? It's pretty much 100%. There's no way, there's only one way that you're not gonna ever hit the shot, and that's like if you just give up, right? As simple as it sounds, that's what a lot of people do. They actually just give up, and that's the only way they could fail, and they do fail because of that. If you just keep trying, you will eventually get it. Now, with the current job market and the fact that it is tougher than it was like 5-10 years ago, instead of hitting a 3-point shot, you gotta hit a half-court shot now. So it's a little bit further back, but the same rule still applies. If you keep trying, keep going for it, eventually, well, guess what? You're going to hit the shot. And here's the thing about getting into the field. You only need to succeed one time, and then you're set forever pretty much, because once you have that experience, then you have that experience and nothing can ever take that away. And so that's the idea, is that you just need to succeed one time. You get infinite tries as long as you don't give up. So that was the approach, and putting myself out there got me this situation that I'm going to explain to you in just a second. But the next question you might be wondering before we get into that is, how much time did this actually take me? Well, I would say it took about 3 years in total of self-study, and talking to numerous coworkers over the years, that seems to be pretty standard, that if you want to learn this stuff on your own, it's going to take about 3 years. It's pretty normal. It's not going to be this instantaneous process. I know we all like to get the instant gratification. I'm no different. Of course, I would prefer that, but that is the reality. But here's the thing. If you can leverage a mentor, someone that's been in the field before, you can definitely make it happen in 6 months to 12 months. And I know that sounds so ridiculous to people, but I'm telling you, this is something that I've been doing now for over 3 years, and actually no, over 4 years now. And I've seen it multiple times. I've gotten people jobs in cybersecurity from scratch. The fastest guy, and I don't like to announce this publicly normally, but just for full transparency, the fastest guy to go through my program and get a job he did it in 4 months. Now, this guy had a background in networking, but even if you have no background, we've helped people get in 12 months. Let's say worst case, 12 months. And so if you can leverage a mentor, then that can greatly speed up the process. But it really just depends on how important moving quickly is to you. If you're 18 years old or something like that, and you have a bunch of time, then, go and learn on your own. Take the 3 years. It's not a big deal. But if you're already into a career in something, you want to make a career change, then you want to move a little bit faster, of course. The way the opportunity came about that got me that cybersecurity job is I had a new manager to come onto the backup and recovery team. Now, this manager, it turned out, used to work in the cybersecurity team at the same company. And so he knew everyone over there. He knew the director of the cybersecurity team and all of that. Here's what put me in the right situation, right place, right time, is that he saw that I was one of the top performers on the team and that I was really putting in my full effort to do the best job possible there. And he also, got to know me a little bit as a manager, and he found out that I was interested in cybersecurity and that I had the background in that, and I was learning on my own, on the side and everything. And he was like, you know what, I see this guy working hard, doing a great job on this team. I want to give him an opportunity. So what he ended up doing is he approached me and he said, hey, are you still interested in getting into cybersecurity? I see, you have the background in that and you've been adamant about learning on that side. And I was like, yeah, absolutely. I definitely want to get into cybersecurity. And he's like, okay, here's what I can do. I can talk to the director over there. I know him pretty well, and I can set you up with an interview with him. Would you be interested in that? I was like, yeah, absolutely. And so that's what he was able to do to leverage his connections to get me over there. Now, even though, yes, that's a very fortunate situation, I still, like I said, had to put myself in the position to capitalize on it. And here's a perfect example of this. There was another guy on my team that actually came from the same college as me, graduated with the same degree as me, and he was on the team, but he was a low performer. He was lazy. He wasn't really putting in his best effort. And even though that guy was also interested in cybersecurity, the director did not approach him and give him that opportunity because he didn't feel the need to reciprocate, because he was like, yeah, this guy's, he's not doing that great of a job. I don't know if I should vouch for him or whatever. I don't know if I want to vouch for him. So he didn't. And so only I got the opportunity out of that. So I think that's a perfect example to show that these things matter, that you're putting in your best effort at what you're currently doing as well. So anyhow, I ended up having the interview with the director of the cybersecurity team. It was super, super streamlined. I didn't have to go through any of the formal process with the automated, resume stuff that a lot of you guys are dealing with, and I feel you there. But I didn't have to deal with that. I just got a interview, not even having to go through the HR interview and multiple rounds. It was just one interview with the director. It was very non-technical. He asked me, what are some of the things that you've been doing to learn cybersecurity on your own? And I told him, and I was like, man, I wish I could say more, but I told him what I did. And he was like, oh yeah, well, that's pretty interesting because that's more experience than most people on the team have. And I thought, no way, this guy, I almost thought I should laugh like it was a joke, right? But then I joined the team and I found out exactly what he was saying. Everyone was extremely new. Most people had never heard of Kali Linux. This was a pen testing team at a Fortune 500 company. But that was how I got my initial entrance into this field. And if you're watching this video and you're like, well, that's so hyper unique, how can I replicate this? My situation's way different. You're probably right, but my point is, if you talk to 100 cybersecurity professionals, 100 pen testers, you're going to get 100 different stories of how they got into the field. And so the idea is this, there's not going to be one concrete path that you can follow to get into the field. It's not like being a lawyer or a doctor where it's a very trodden path to say, hey, you go to med school, then you go and, to the doctor school, specialize in whatever thing, or you go to law school or whatever. This field isn't like that, which is exactly why I mentor people in the field, so I can give them very specific advice that's tailored to them, because best advice for you really depends on your background. I would never give the same advice to a truck driver as I would give to a software developer trying to get into the field, just as an example, right? And so yes, it is very specific on how to get into the field, which is why I think mentorship is so valuable. But I hope that sharing my story not only motivated you, but gave you some insights on maybe how you can take your situation and leverage it to get into the field. If you take nothing else from this video, just understand that putting your best effort in, showing up, and giving yourself the opportunity to get lucky is really the key that's going to unlock the door. But if you want some additional guidance, if you maybe want some more tailored advice, definitely check out the link in the description below. Fill out a brief survey, and I will help get you on the path. All right, guys, I'll see you in the next video.